This is the group resources video for episode 115 of the BEMA podcast titled Five Loaves, Two Fish, and One Big Lesson. And one of my favorite episodes, and after I just got done in the last video saying, people stop sending in so much feedback after they kind of get used to things. This is an episode where I get a ton of feedback on all the time. People are always wanting sources for numerology. Numerology is such a squishy subject to study. There's one source I have on my bibliography. Let me see if I can find it. Hold on. These videos aren't real production technical, so I'm just stepping out of the frame for a moment as I go and get a bibliography that I have. You're going to try to ask me if you can have this. No, you cannot. That's not me being mean. It's just it's a special gift from a special relationship. Okay, the one book that I have that is on my bibliography about numbers is not a fantastic resource. This is not a 5-star or even a 4-star recommendation, but it is a book that you can read, Numerical Secrets of the Bible by Lubashong. I'm trying to think of it's probably French. Lubashan is, I don't know how you say that in French. Labuschagene. I'll say it again. Labuschagene. If I remember, I'll try to put a link to this work in the description. It's not a fantastic resource, so I'm not sending that with a glowing review. But there's not a whole lot of work out there that I'm aware of that dives into Jewish numerology. If you spend a little bit of time on Google, you're going to find out what a mess it is. Because you have everything from modern Judaism, mystical Judaism, medieval mysticism, classical era, and then you have historical Judaism. We're looking for Second Temple Judaism numerology. Essentially what I'm saying is numerology changes throughout the ages to do different things, mean different things. Numerology, what's relevant for us is what Jesus understood and was doing with numerology. That's going to be Second Temple Judaism. It's going to be Mishnaic numerology is what you're really wanting to, Mishnaic and pre-Mishnaic numerology. And that's just difficult to find resources for, okay? So it's going to be hard to cite sources on that. However, it is absolutely relevant that these numbers matter. Now, we're going to wait for another episode later, I believe. I don't think we did it in this episode. We're going to wait for the feeding of the 4,000 to kind of make that point. But it's very clear that Jesus is very intentionally doing something with numbers because that's what he's going to tell his disciples in the boat. After the feeding of the 4,000, Jesus is going to get in the boat with his disciples. They're going to start to have an argument, and Jesus is going to grill them, not over theology. He's going to grill them about the numbers. How many baskets? How many loaves? How many? Do you still not see, Jesus is going to tell them? You are supposed to notice the numbers. This is absolutely about numerology. Even though it's hard to cite sources, we can't get away from the fact that is what Jesus is doing as a rabbi. So there's that, okay? Second is everybody wants to know what happened to the Shuvah project with Chris. Chris's life went in this direction and that direction. He got a new job. He was a professor in Pennsylvania for a period of time. He just got another job. Life happens, right? And you're not able to necessarily keep that up and going. And so that project was one that kind of stalled out. And that's what happened with the Shuvah project. But I believe the website, what he did do, what he was able to do, is still up. It might not be. I'm not even sure. But that's linked in our show notes as well. But that's the other piece of questioning and feedback that we get from others. Anyway, so the big idea here was go over the feeding of the 5,000 to remind us of numerology. It's not the first time we've talked about it, but it might be the cleanest, most complete example of numerology in a whole lesson. So that's the big idea. And again, I think this is almost like part A to another conversation that's going to end later in another lesson. Okay? But that's the big idea. Head question, maybe somebody, honestly, for head conversation, go find whatever you can find on numerology. Dig up numerology. Make sure it's not just Marty's blog, because let's stop listening to Marty. Go find somebody other than Marty. Go find Second Temple Judaism, Mishnaic, pre-Mishnaic numerology. See what you can find. Find some of those things. I'm sure you're going to run across a lot of this stuff when you're reading Flusser or Safrai or Sarna or Stern. Like, I'm sure you're going to bump into a bunch of this stuff. But see what you guys might be able to find more if you put the right people to the task. They may find some beautiful resources that I haven't even found yet. And if they do, let me know. And then let's see here. Heart questions. I don't know, heart and hand questions. I would put those two together, and I would focus on that last question that I basically closed the episode with, which is the question that Ray posed to us. Like, we always want to focus on the miracle. So did Jesus feed 5,000 people or not? 5,000 men plus women and children. So did Jesus feed like 10,000 people, 7,000 people, 12,000 people? Like, did Jesus really feed them? What did that look like? Was it a miracle? Do you believe in a miracle? And Ray just said, we always want to focus on the miracle and whether or not it happened historically, and we miss one of the, maybe the more relevant lessons for us, which is, who cares if it happened? The demons know that it happened on the hillside that day. They were all there. They can affirm that. Like the story, the miracle, it has to actually change our hearts. If it doesn't change our hearts, like if we're just going to get in a boat and argue about bread, who cares? Like, if you know all the cool little things about Jewish numerology, and you know the secret to the feeding of the 5,000 now because of the BEMA podcast, who cares unless it actually changes the way that we live? Like, who cares unless we actually decide to trust that Jesus knows how to handle Torah? Unless we trust that there's enough Jesus to go around for everybody. Like, is there enough Jesus for 12 basketfuls of leftover? Is that a thing? Is when Jesus deals with the things of God, when Jesus comes and gives himself to his people, is there enough of Jesus to go around for everybody? Or do we have to kind of hoard and protect Jesus? I mean, that kind of sounds ridiculous, but if you think about it, it's kind of what we do all the time. It's kind of where we live. And that makes it a very handsy conversation to me. So those are some thoughts about what I would do at discussion group. I hope it's helpful. If not, we hope we do better in the next discussion video, and we'll see you then.